Hey guys, tonight we slip back in time, far, far before clocks and smartphones and microwaves, to a land where the river ruled everything. Imagine yourself waking up in Mesopotamia, the so-called cradle of civilization. The sky above is still dark, the stars faint, but the horizon is beginning to glow with that first suggestion of light. You stretch out on a reed mat, feeling the rough texture under your skin, and you wonder if you can even survive a day in this place, because, honestly, you probably won't survive this without coffee. Too bad coffee won't even exist here for another couple thousand years. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, comment below with where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing the mix of places and time zones. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice as you open your eyes is the hush of the world just before sunrise. The night has left a coolness in the mud brick room, and that coolness won't last long. Soon the air will thicken with heat, but for now you can breathe deeply. A faint smell of baked earth lingers, the kind that comes from walls that have been holding in warmth all night. A clay lamp sputters its final bit of oil, and you realize it's time to start the day. You're not a priest or a scribe or a soldier. You're a potter. Your hands are your tools, and the clay is both your burden and your reward. You rise quietly, careful not to wake the rest of the family. A child stirs under a woven blanket, sighing and curling tighter into sleep. Outside, a rooster's call slices through the quiet, and a dog barks somewhere in the distance, impatient for scraps that won't arrive for hours. The air outside is fresh, if a little dusty, and the street is empty save for a neighbor carrying a bundle of reeds. She nods at you, too sleepy for words. In this city rook, some might call it life, depends on early rising. Farmers have already trudged to the irrigation canals, merchants are still asleep, and craftsmen like you claim this quiet hour to begin. Historians still argue whether cities like Uruk or Eridu were truly the first urban centers in the world. But for you, it's not a debate. It's just home. You run your fingers through your hair, tie it back with a strip of cloth, and wash your face with cool water from a jug. The water tastes faintly of the river, and you spit out the grit. Rituals are simple here. No soap, no perfumes, just water and a short prayer muttered to whatever god happens to be listening. Perhaps to Ea, Lord of Wisdom, or perhaps to a household spirit who guards the threshold. Either way, you whisper quickly, because the day's work won't wait. As you step out fully, you hear the first carts creaking on wooden wheels. Donkeys shuffle past, their breath steaming faintly in the dawn chill. A man driving them grumbles about prices at the market, though no one is there to argue with him. You walk along the packed dirt street, past doorways where small oil lamps still flicker, marking the homes of early risers like yourself. There's a sense of continuity. Your father was a potter, and his father before him. Clay has always been your inheritance. Some people leave grand monuments, carve their names on stone stelas, or rise to command soldiers. You leave cups, bowls, jars for storing dates and beer. And yet, those objects outlast empires. A pot cracked in someone's kitchen today might end up buried, waiting for some distant archaeologist to puzzle over it 5,000 years later. You smile at the thought, though the concept of archaeologists is centuries beyond your imagination. The eastern sky brightens. You can almost hear the hum of life swelling, the rustle of palm fronds, the grunt of animals, the low chant of temple servants beginning their morning tasks. Somewhere a priest is burning incense, and the smell wafts faintly through the streets. The city is waking, and you are already part of it. The coolness starts to slip away. You wipe your brow, though the sun isn't even fully visible yet. The day will be long, and the heat will cling to your back like a heavy cloak. But there's a satisfaction in being ahead of it, moving while others still linger in bed. You check the small pouch tied at your waist. A stone token for trade, a bit of twine, and a lucky bead your mother pressed into your hand years ago. For fortune, she said, though fortune for a potter is measured more in sturdy clay than in gold. You finger the bead for a moment, pocket it again, and keep walking. A quirky little belief flickers in your mind, the rumor that some people smear crocodile dung on their skin to ward off the sun's bite. You chuckle at it, half disgusted, half amused. You're not about to test it, though. A wide-brimmed reed hat is more your style, and you pull it low over your face as the light begins to glare. Already you feel your stomach nudge at you, empty from the night. There will be bread later, flat and coarse, with maybe a drizzle of date syrup if luck smiles. For now, hunger is just a companion, like the dust on your sandals. You step past a group of boys chasing each other, their laughter breaking the quiet. One carries a small clay toy Carter miniature of the larger ones pulled by donkeys. Someone must have molded it yesterday. You can't help but glance at it with a craftsman's eye. The wheels wobble, but the body is solid. It's good work, though perhaps rushed by impatient hands. Reaching your workspace, you pause. It's nothing grand, just a sheltered yard with a wheel, a pile of clay, and tools worn smooth with use. But here, in this corner of the city, you shape the world, one vessel at a time. The light spills fully across the rooftops, chasing away the last shadows. You settle onto a low stool, breathing in, readying yourself. The day has begun, and so has your rhythm. The coolness of dawn is fleeting, and you know if you don't gather your materials now, the sun will soon make every step feel like carrying a jar of boiling pitch. Fetching water and clay is the true start of the day, the heartbeat of your craft. Without it, there's no wheel to spin, no pot to sell, no reason for neighbors to stop by and barter for cups or jars. You sling a wide reed basket over your shoulder, the weave sturdy but fraying at the edges, and head toward the riverbank. The path is familiar, worn by countless feet, both human and animal. A donkey grazed nearby, tugging at its rope, impatient with the heat that hasn't yet arrived. You pat its nose as you pass, and it huffs at you, a puff of warm air that smells faintly of hay. The river glimmers in the distance, not yet reflecting the full blaze of the sun. It is the Euphrates, lifeline of the land. Without its waters, this place would be just dust and memory. The irrigation channels cut through the fields like veins, feeding barley, wheat, and date palms. Farmers are already ankle-deep in mud, pulling at stubborn weeds. They barely glance at you. Your clay isn't their concern. Still, you nod at them. a quiet acknowledgement of shared labor. Kneeling at the riverbank, you scoop water into a clay jar, the coolness soaking your hands and splashing against your arms. For a moment, you let it run over your skin, savoring the relief. Then it's back to work. You dig your fingers into the soft earth at the water's edge, feeling for the heavier, denser clumps of clay that lie beneath the looser soil. It's messy work. Your nails clog with grit, your palms smear brown, but this is the heart of what you do. You pile the sticky clumps into your basket, careful not to overload it. Too much, and the straps dig painfully into your shoulders. Too little, and you'll regret the wasted trip. Finding the balance is its own small skill, one learned over years of repeating this very motion. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian potters collected clay themselves or relied on apprentices and laborers to fetch it. But in your quiet corner of the city, no one else will do it for you. A fisherman trudges past, his net slung over his shoulder, dripping and glittering with scales. He grins, showing teeth stained dark with chewing herbs, and teases you. Clay again. You'll turn into mud yourself one day. You grin back, wiping your brow. Better mud than fish guts. He laughs and keeps walking, leaving behind the faint smell of riverweed and fresh catch. The basket grows heavy, and you adjust your grip. The clay clings to the weave, seeping between gaps like stubborn dough. The weight tugs at your back, each step deliberate on the uneven ground. Still, there's satisfaction in it. This is the material that will soon become bowls, pitchers, and cooking pots. You imagine families pouring barley beer from your jars, children eating from your bowls, priests mixing incense in your small dishes. Your work carries into their lives, even when you're not there to see it. As you climb the bank, you pause to catch your breath. The sky is shifting now, pale blue streaked with faint clouds. A pair of herons lift from the reeds, their wings catching the light. For a fleeting moment, you watch them, envying their effortless rise. Then the weight on your shoulders reminds you of gravity and clay and duty. Back in the streets, you pass a row of mud brick houses, their walls still damp from the night air. A woman leans out of her doorway, balancing a jar on her hip. She calls out, asking if you'll have any small cups ready by tomorrow. You nod, though you're not sure. Clay takes time, and the kiln has a mind of its own. Still, you offer her a reassuring smile. In this city, promises are as much currency as tokens of silver. A group of children trail behind you for a few steps, giggling at your muddy arms. One dares to poke at the basket, leaving a smear of clay across his fingers. Don't waste it, you tell him with mock sternness. That's my bread you're touching. He laughs and runs off, already forgetting. By the time you reach your yard again, the straps of the basket have cut lines into your skin. You set it down with a grunt, flexing your shoulders. The pile of clay sits heavy, waiting, like a guest that demands attention the moment it arrives. You take a moment to rinse your arms with the water you carried, letting the grit wash away. The cool trickle eases the soreness in your muscles, if only briefly. It's funny, you think, how clay feels alive when it's wet, pliable, almost breathing under your fingers. Yet once fired, it becomes harder than bone, stubborn as stone. That transformation, the shift from soft earth to enduring vessel, is what keeps you coming back. Some even whisper it's like a small echo of the God's work, shaping humans from clay. You don't dwell on it, but the thought lingers as you look at your pile. You set aside a portion of the clay to dry a little under shade. The rest will be worked soon, but patience is essential. Rushing clay is like rushing bread dough. It will punish you for your impatience with cracks and collapse. For now, you sit on a low stool, drinking a mouthful of water, watching the city stir more fully around you. The potter's day has begun in earnest. The clay is here, the water is here, and your hands are ready. Everything else can wait. And just as you settle, you recall that strange belief again: crocodile dung as sunscreen. You shake your head, laughing under your breath. If it works, maybe the farmers should smear it on their donkeys too. Somehow you doubt anyone's truly testing it. Your wheel waits in the corner, silent. Its wooden frame darkened by years of sweat and spilled water. Soon it will sing under your touch. But first, the clay must be tamed. The clay sits in a damp heap before you, raw, sticky, and stubborn. Fetching it is one battle, but preparing it, that's where patience either makes you or breaks you. You settle cross-legged on the packed earth, spreading a reed mat beneath your knees to soften the ground. The mat is worn thin, its edges frayed like old parchment, but it spares your skin from the grit. You grab the first clump, heavy and cool, and press your thumbs deep into it. The clay resists, stiff and lumpy, hiding small stones and gritty sand. It's not ready to be spun into vessels. Not yet. It needs tempering, kneading, coaxing into pliability. You roll the lump between your palms, the moisture squelching, leaving streaks up your forearms. The smell rises strong, earthy, sharp, almost metallic. A potter's preparation is like a baker's, though your loaves are never eaten. You sprinkle in chaff from barley husks, saved from the farmer's threshing floor. Without temper, clay cracks as it dries. With it, the clay becomes forgiving, stable, capable of surviving both heat and time. You toss in the straw-like fibers, mix and fold the mass against itself, over and over, until your arms ache. The rhythm of kneading is meditative. You press down with your palms, fold, turn, press again. Outside your yard, the city grows noisier. Donkeys bray, merchants shout their greetings, and a child squeals as if a sibling has just stolen something precious. Life weaves itself around your small courtyard, but here your focus narrows to this simple, endless act of taming earth. A small shard pricks your palm, sharp enough to draw a dot of blood. You suck your finger, frowning, then flick the shard aside. Clay always hides surprises. Sometimes it holds pebbles, sometimes roots, once even a fishbone dragged in by the river. There's a local story that clay remembers everything it touches. Some laugh at that, but you can't help thinking about it whenever your hands meet something unexpected inside the mud. You wipe your brow with your forearm, smearing a brown streak across your temple. Sweat beads already, though the day is still young. The heat will make the clay sticky if you don't keep it shaded. So you pull a reed screen overhead, filtering the sun into a soft lattice of gold and shadow. As you knead, your mind drifts. You think of your father's hands, how they seemed impossibly large when you were a child. You remember sitting at his side, watching the way his palms pressed the clay, the way his fingers guided every lump into smoothness. He once told you, clay is stubborn, like people. You can't force it to guide it. You didn't understand then. Now, with aching arms, you do. Historians still argue whether potters of your era worked alone or in guilds. But in your quiet corner of Uruk, the work is solitary. Apprenticeships exist, of course, though you've never had one. Some neighbors whisper that you should take a boy to teach, to carry water, to fetch wood for the kiln. But teaching is its own burden, and you're not yet ready to share your rhythm with someone else. A quirky memory surfaces. Someone once told you clay could cure headaches if pressed cold against the forehead. You tested it once after a day of standing too long at the wheel. The clay felt cool, yes, but the headache stayed. Still, the story circulates, passed from one tired artisan to another. Your pile of prepared clay grows. The once ragged lumps are now smoother, pliable, with a slight grit from the chaff. You slap a ball against the ground, hearing the dull thud. The sound pleases you. It means the air pockets are gone. Air, trapped inside, is the enemy. In the kiln, it expands, bursts, shatters the work of hours. You mutter a small prayer under your breath, not to a god of storms or kings, but to whatever spirit governs the kiln's whims. The process is exhausting. Your arms tremble, your back knots. You pause, stretching, listening to the faint sound of temple drums in the distance. Perhaps a sacrifice is beginning. The priests always say the gods must be fed with smoke and song. You wonder if the gods ever notice pots, humble vessels, or if they care only for gold and carved stone. Still, even priests need jars for their oils and dishes for their offerings. Somewhere, unknowingly, they use your work. A boy peeks in through the gate, wide-eyed, clutching a fig in his hand. "Potter," he calls. "My mother says she'll bring barley to trade tomorrow." You nod, wiping your hands. "Tell her I'll have cups by then." He grins, bites his fig, and darts away, leaving sticky juice on his chin. Returning to the clay, you notice your fingers have wrinkled the way they do after long hours in water. You laugh softly. The river clings to you even here. The thought is oddly comforting. At last, the pile looks ready smooth, moist but not sloppy, heavy but manageable. You cover it with a damp cloth to keep it from drying too quickly. Your hands, now caked in a thick second skin of mud, are stiff. You flex your fingers, imagining them as tools forged by work itself. They're not soft hands, not scribes' hands, not priests' hands. They're earth hands. You rinse them in the jar of water you carried earlier. The liquid turns murky instantly, the clay clouding it until you can no longer see your knuckles. You watch the swirls like tiny storms, then pour the sludge onto the ground, where it will harden into nothing remarkable. The clay is ready now. It waits silently, like a promise, like a stubborn child tamed. You stand, stretch, and look at your wheel. Soon the dance begins. The morning has moved forward, and the air is shifting. The soft coolness of dawn is gone, replaced by a gentle but steady warmth that spreads across the mud brick walls of your yard. The wheel sits nearby, silent and still, but before you touch it, your ears remind you of the city around you. Morning market sounds drift in like a tide, carried on air that tastes faintly of dust and grain. From the narrow street outside, you hear the creak of wooden carts, their wheels groaning as donkeys pull them over uneven ruts. A vendor shouts about fresh dates, his voice hoarse yet insistent, as though repeating the same phrase will make the fruit sweeter. Another calls for barley, offering sacks that smell faintly of grass and soil. Children squeal, darting between legs, their laughter punctuated by the occasional cry when one stumbles on a loose stone. You step out to the edge of your doorway and lean on the frame. Across the way, a baker drags out flat trays of dough, setting them on stone for a moment before sliding them into the outdoor oven. The smell of rising bread wafts thick and warm, mixing with the sharper tang of onions carried in baskets by a neighbor. It makes your stomach grumble, reminding you that you haven't eaten since yesterday evening's stew. But hunger is a patient companion. Work comes first. The city is alive with texture. A woman balances a tall jar on her head, swaying slightly but never spilling a drop. She scolds her son, who trots behind her with a reed basket full of fish that twitch and glisten, their smell sharp even from here. Nearby, an old man kneels to repair a sandal, threading leather with hands that shake but still know their work. Your own corner is quieter, though the sounds of others press in. It's a comfort, really knowing you're part of this rhythm. That the potter's yard hums along with bakers, weavers, and merchants. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian cities were chaotic hives or orderly grids, but from where you stand, they are simply alive. Not perfectly ordered, not wildly out of control, just humming like bees that know their hive by instinct. A donkey brays, pulling your attention to a group of farmers arriving with baskets of vegetables. Their feet are caked with mud from the irrigation ditches, and their tunics hang damp. They chatter about water levels, about whether the river will rise too high this season, about whether the gods are kind or indifferent. One spits on the ground, muttering that the priests take too much grain for themselves. Another warns him to hush before someone overhears. The gossip and muttering mingle with more cheerful noises. A flute played by a boy sitting idly on a doorstep. The rhythmic beating of cloth at a washer's basin. The scold of a woman driving chickens away from her baskets of lentils. A baby cries, then laughs, then cries again, as babies always do. A quirky tidbit drifts into your memory. Someone once told you that donkeys can predict the weather by braying more often before rain. You smile faintly at the idea. The donkey across the street brays again, louder this time. Maybe it knows something you don't, or maybe it just wants barley husks. Either way, you'll find out soon enough. You carry a small jug of water and splash it across your yard, dampening the dust so it won't choke you when the wheel begins to spin. The ground darkens, the smell of wet earth rising sharp and fresh. That smell always reminds you of new beginnings, though to others it probably just smells like mud. For a moment, you pause. You take in the sight of the rooftops around you, smoke beginning to curl upward from cooking fires. A pigeon lands on the low wall, pecks at a crumb, then takes off with a flutter. The city is fully awake now, and so must you be. You settle onto your stool beside the wheel, placing your hands lightly on its surface. It is still, waiting for the weight of clay. The background sounds of the market don't vanish, but they fade into something steady, like music behind your work. You think of them almost as companions, the baker's shout, the donkey's call, the clatter of traders all keeping time with your own rhythm. Somewhere deeper in the city, you hear the distant beat of drums, steady and ceremonial. Perhaps at the temple, a priest is leading chants to greet the sun. Or maybe it's just a wedding procession. Historians still argue whether daily temple rituals were grand spectacles or quiet ceremonies, but to you, the sound is simply part of mourning. Like birdsong, the first true heat presses against your skin now, and you wipe your brow with the back of your hand. Your clay waits under its damp cloth, pliable and ready. You smile to yourself. The market's chatter may belong to everyone, but the wheel belongs to you. You reach for the first lump of clay, heavy and cool, and set it gently on the center of the wheel. The noises around you continue, the laughter, the cries, the endless creak of carts but in your yard. The world is about to narrow into a circle of spinning earth. For just a moment, before your foot sets the wheel in motion, you take a deep breath. The market hums, the city bustles, and you, potter of Uruk, prepare to make the earth dance beneath your hands. Your foot nudges the lower stone of the wheel, and it groans softly before it begins its slow spin. At first, the movement is clumsy, uneven, but with each push it steadies, circling with a rhythm you can feel through the soles of your feet. The top, disc smooth from years of touch, begins to blur faintly as it turns, waiting for what you'll place upon it. You take the first lump of prepared clay from beneath its damp cloth. It is cool, pliable, and heavy with promise. You set it firmly in the center, pressing down with the heel of your hand. The wheel wobbles slightly, as if testing your balance, and then settles. You dip your fingers in water, the droplets running down your wrists, and place them gently onto the clay. Instantly, the texture changes. Wet clay is soft, responsive, almost alive, and under your guiding pressure it begins to rise. At first, the shape is nothing, a mound that resists you, threatening to collapse. You push inward, then upward, centering it. The wheel hums beneath your foot, steadying with your breath. Slowly, patiently, you coax the lump into a tower. Your fingers press, shaping the edges. The walls begin to thin, climbing upward into something delicate, something fragile yet growing stronger with each pass of your hand. This moment is always strange. You are both controlling and surrendering. Too much force and the clay collapses. Too little and it spins aimlessly. The perfect pot emerges only when you and the earth strike a truce. Your hands don't force, they guide, as your father once said. And as you lean closer, watching the form rise, you understand again what he meant. Around you, the city noise fades into a distant murmur. The wheel's rhythm fills your ears, the soft scrape of clay under your fingers, the steady beat of your foot on the lower disc. For a while, it feels like time pauses. A mainstream fact drifts through your thoughts. Pottery wheels like this one were once considered a marvel of innovation. Before them, pots were shaped by coiling strips of clay or molding by hand, slow and irregular. The wheel changed everything. Now vessels could be made faster, smoother, more uniform. It said the wheel itself, both for pottery and for transport, was among humanity's greatest inventions. You chuckle softly. Who knew the future of civilization might hinge on something as simple as a circle? You shape a bowl first. It's wide and shallow, the kind that will hold barley, porridge, or stew. As the rim widens, you steady it with both hands, smoothing its edge with a wet thumb. The clay shines in the sunlight, reflecting the glow of morning. You ease the bowl from the wheel with a length of reed, sliding it carefully so it doesn't warp. Placing it on a board to dry, you feel a flicker of pride. One vessel done, countless more to go. The next lump becomes a jar, taller, with walls pulled upward into a cylinder. Your fingers dip inside, shaping the hollow, coaxing it wider. The clay resists, but you persist, pressing gently at the base, then thinning the neck. The form emerges, elegant in its simplicity. You smooth the lip, then pause to admire how it catches the light. Perhaps it will hold beer, perhaps oil. Either way, it will pass into hands that never know yours, serving quietly until it cracks or shatters. A neighbor calls out over the wall, interrupting your focus. "Potter, any new jars for storing dates?" You don't look up, but you answer, "By tomorrow, if the kiln is kind." He laughs, wishing you luck, and his footsteps fade away. Lucky, yes, you'll need it. Clay may be patient under your hands, but fire is temperamental. As you shape another vessel, a quirky tidbit resurfaces. Some say clay absorbs the character of the one who molds it. If the potter is angry, the jar will crack. If joyful, it will shine. You wonder what mood these pots will carry. Perhaps they'll inherit your quiet determination, or maybe your occasional sarcasm. You snort softly at the thought. Imagine someone drinking beer from a cup that carries sarcasm in its walls. The sun climbs higher, and the light spills across your yard. Sweat runs down your temple, dripping onto the wheel, mixing with the clay. You barely notice. Your hands move instinctively now, shaping, pressing, coaxing form after form. A dozen vessels line your board, each unique yet tied by the same rhythm. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian pottery was purely utilitarian or also seen as art. From where you sit, it feels like both. A jar may hold grain, yes, but isn't there beauty in its curve? A bowl may serve porridge, but the rim, smoothed and even, gives quiet satisfaction. You don't carve grand statues or inscribe epic tales on stone, but you shape the small, necessary things that make life possible. And in their simplicity, perhaps they are art. The wheel slows as your foot tires. You pause, stretching your back, wiping your hands on your tunic. The clay smears leave streaks that harden quickly in the sun, stiffening the fabric. Your arms ache, but it's a familiar ache, one that signals work well begun. You glance at the vessels drying on the board. They lean slightly, their walls still soft, waiting for the heat that will harden them. Each one feels like a small gamble. Will they survive the kill? Will they sell at market? Or will they collapse into shards? Useless, but still part of the cycle. The sound of the wheel at rest is strange. After hours of spinning, you almost miss the hum. But the clay is ready for the next stage, and you, too, need a moment to breathe. A donkey brays again in the street, startling a flock of birds into flight. You watch them scatter across the sky, their wings flashing in the light. For a brief second, you envy their freedom. Then you turn back to your wheel, place another lump of clay at its center, and begin again. The steady spin of the wheel slows, and you take the chance to rub the stiffness from your legs. The morning has advanced enough that shadows grow shorter, and the market outside hums at full voice now. As you reach for another lump of clay, You hear the scrape of sandals on the street and the unmistakable murmur of conversation drifting over your courtyard wall. Neighbors, fellow artisans, gossip is the lifeblood of the city, flowing as freely as water through the irrigation channels. You can't help but listen, even when you pretend to stay focused on your clay. Two men walk past, voices carrying. One is a weaver, recognizable by the streaks of dyed wool on his tunic. The other is a carpenter, his hands nicked with tiny cuts from chisels and saws. I tell you, the temple tax is heavier this year. The weaver grumbles. The carpenter snorts. Heavier every year. They say the priests need more grain for the gods. I say their stomachs need more than the gods do. They laugh, a dry kind of laugh. The kind that admits complaint but carries no solution. You chuckle under your breath. Complaining about priests is as old as the temples themselves. Historians still argue whether those massive ziggurats were truly centers of worship or centers of political control. To ordinary folk like you, it hardly matters. The grain leaves your hands either way. Your neighbor, the woman who asked for cups earlier, leans over her wall, her hair wrapped in a faded cloth. Potter, she calls. You pause, hands dripping with wet clay. She grins. Did you hear? Someone saw a lion near the outer fields last night. You raise an eyebrow. A lion, or just another farmer's tall tale? She shrugs dramatically. They say the guards chased it with spears, but it vanished into the reeds. You shake your head. If I see a lion, I'll offer it a bowl. She laughs, her shoulders shaking, and disappears back into her house. The lion rumor lingers. It's not impossible. Wild animals sometimes roam close to the city, especially when water is scarce. But more often, lions exist in stories. Powerful symbols for kings and warriors, carved on stone walls to remind people of might. For a humble potter, though, the idea is mostly an amusing distraction. You place another vessel on the drying board, its walls thin and elegant. A group of boys peeks in through your gate, their eyes wide. One whispers loudly, "Look, his hands are magic." Another snickers. "No, just muddy." They bolt when you glance up, their laughter trailing behind them like birds scattering into the sky. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. Some believe that children should never watch pots being shaped, or else the clay will warp under their gaze. You've never subscribed to such superstition, but you wonder if the boys' giggles might indeed ripple through the walls of the jar you just finished. Superstitions are funny, that way half dismissed, half believed. Your own mind drifts as you work. You think of the carpenter, his complaints about priests. You think of your father's voice, reminding you not to waste clay. You think of your neighbor's story of a lion, and the image of it wandering the outer fields becomes strangely vivid in your mind. The pot in your hands nearly collapses as your focus wavers. You steady it quickly, whispering a curse under your breath, then laugh softly. Even clay seems to demand your full attention, jealous of any stray thought. From further down the street, a woman's voice rises, sharp and insistent. She's bargaining loudly with a fish seller. "Too small, too thin. My cat would starve on these." The fish seller replies just as loudly, "Then feed your cat dates." You smile, shaking your head. Markets are always half trade, half theatre. The carpenter passes by again. this time carrying a plank over his shoulder. He pauses at your doorway. "Potter, make me a jug with a sturdy handle. My last one broke." You nod. "Bring me a little extra wood, and I'll make it thicker." He grins, pleased with the bargain. Done. Then he hurries off, already thinking of his own work. You wipe your hands on your tunic, streaking it with more mud. Your wheel hums as your foot sets it spinning again, and the clay rises once more. The conversations around you blur into a chorus. Priests demanding offerings, neighbors trading food, rumors of lions, laughter of children. All of it filters into your courtyard, and somehow into the clay itself. Historians still argue whether artisans like you were seen as respected specialists or merely humble laborers. You feel both at once. Respected, because people depend on your vessels. Humble, because no king will ever carve your name into stone. Yet, in your small yard, with neighbors leaning over the wall and children giggling at your mud magic, you feel woven into the fabric of the city. Not grand, but essential. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the noise swells. A flute trills faintly, answered by the steady thump of grain being pounded into flour. Somewhere, a donkey brays, yet again perhaps predicting weather, perhaps just demanding attention. You smile at the thought, shaping the final vessel of the morning. The clay walls thin beneath your fingers, delicate yet steady. You smooth the rim, dip your hands in water, and let the pot spin down to stillness. Outside, gossip continues. Inside, your work takes form. By the time you lift the vessel from the wheel, the city's voices feel like an old friend, filling the silence you'd otherwise drown in. You place the pot carefully beside the others, wipe your brow, and lean back with a long exhale. Your neighbor's words still hang in the air, complaints about priests, laughter about lions, bargains over fish. Perhaps tomorrow new rumors will replace them. But for today, their stories live quietly in the background of your clay. The sun is no longer gentle. It climbs and leans directly over the city, pouring heat down like a slow flood. Your courtyard, once shaded by the low walls and red mats, now feels like an oven itself. The clay you shaped earlier darkens at the edges as it dries faster than you'd like. You place damp cloths over a few of the thinner bowls, hoping to slow the sun's eager hands. The air is thick. Each breath tastes dusty, like swallowing warm sand. You press a hand to your back, aching from hours at the wheel, and realize you've reached that part of the day when even the busiest city pauses. The midday heat is merciless, and Mesopotamians long ago learned that stubbornness against the sun never wins. You stand, stretch, and step out into the street. It is quieter now. The shouting vendors have retreated into shade, their goods covered with cloths. A few dogs lie sprawled in the dust, tongues lolling, barely moving. A child drags a stick lazily across the dirt, too tired to play with any energy. Even the donkeys have gone silent, ears flicking, but mouths shut. You head toward the nearest patch of shade, a low awning stretched across a neighbor's wall. The coolness there is relative. It is still hot, but the difference is enough to breathe easier. You sit on a small stone, pouring a bit of water into your hands to wash the clay from your skin. The trickle runs warm, not refreshing, but it helps. A neighbor joins you, carrying a bowl of dates. He offers one, and you accept, biting into its sticky sweetness. The sugar coats your tongue, almost cloying, but it gives a small burst of energy. "Busy morning?" he asks, squinting at you. "As busy as clay allows," you reply. He chuckles. "At least clay doesn't talk back. My donkey nearly kicked me this morning." You both laugh quietly, the sound muffled by the still air. Silence hovers in the city, broken only by the occasional murmur of voices from shaded courtyards. Historians still argue whether ancient people observed something like a midday rest. But from where you sit, the answer is obvious. The city sleeps when the sun demands it. You lean against the wall, eyes half closed, listening. Somewhere distant, you hear a faint chant from the temple. Priests rarely pause, even in this heat. Their voices rise like threads of smoke, weaving through the air. You imagine them fanning the sacred fires, sweat soaking their elaborate robes, their devotion heavier than the sun itself. Closer by, your neighbor's wife sings softly to a child. The tune is repetitive, almost hypnotic, each line rising and falling like the gentle lap of water against a reed boat. You don't know the words, but the rhythm is soothing. It reminds you of your mother humming as she ground grain in the morning. You shift, finding a more comfortable spot on the stone. Your body aches in small places you barely notice while working the crook of your elbow, the base of your neck, the arches of your feet. Rest lets those aches whisper louder. You rub your shoulder absent-mindedly, tracing the line of dried clay still clinging to your arm. A quirky tidbit floats into memory. Some people believe that sleeping in the midday sun causes strange dreams, visions sent by restless spirits. You've heard stories of men who dozed too long in the heat and woke swearing they'd spoken to the gods themselves. You glance upward, watching the waves of air shimmer above the rooftops. Perhaps there is some truth in it. You close your eyes for a moment, half tempted to test it. The quiet is interrupted by a distant bleat. A goat somewhere refuses to surrender to the heat, bleating stubbornly for food. You chuckle softly, shaking your head. Even in silence, the city has small interruptions, little reminders that life doesn't truly stop. You open your eyes again and study your hands. The creases are lined with traces of clay, even after washing. They are rough, not soft, carved by years of work. Yet in their roughness lies skill. You flex your fingers, imagining the shapes you'll still coax from the pile waiting under the damp cloth. For now, though, you allow yourself this pause. The date pit rolls between your fingers, smooth and light. You flick it aside into the dust, where perhaps it will sprout, or perhaps it will dry and crumble, forgotten. Everything here lives between those two fates, growth or dust. You sigh, leaning back again, and let your thoughts drift. Historians still argue whether rest in this land was ever truly restful, with so many demands from gods, kings, and neighbors. But here, in this quiet midday, it feels restful enough. The city's heartbeat has slowed. Your own breath falls into rhythm with it. And for a short while, nothing more is required of you. You close your eyes again, just briefly. The chant of the priest fades, the hum of insects grows, and your mind wanders. Perhaps to the river, perhaps to dreams, perhaps simply to stillness. The clay waits, the wheel waits, the kiln waits. They will have their turn. But the sun rules now, and it commands only this. Pause, breathe, endure. The weight of the sun shifts as the day creeps into afternoon. Shadows stretch longer again, promising that the worst of the heat has passed. You return to your yard slowly, rolling your shoulders as though shaking off the heaviness of midday rest. The clay sits beneath its damp cloth, waiting with the same patience it always shows. Some pieces on the drying boards have stiffened nicely, edges firm but not brittle. Others still glisten faintly, soft to the touch. This is when the quieter art begins, not the brute strength of kneading, nor the steady rhythm of the wheel, but the delicate work of decorating pottery. You lift a bowl from the board, feeling the cool smoothness of its walls. It is strong enough to handle, yet soft enough to accept your mark. Every potter leaves some trace, whether deliberate or unintentional. Today, you decide to add deliberate beauty. You fetch a small basket of tools, bone needles polished smooth, reeds cut into fine points, and a shard of broken obsidian that glitters darkly. Each tool has its use. You dip the reed in a thin slip of watered clay, tinted slightly with red earth gathered from a different bank of the river. With careful strokes, you draw a simple line around the rim of the bowl. It is not grand, just a thin circle, even and unbroken, but it frames the vessel like a crown. You remember a story told by your father, that once a merchant carried one of your grandfather's decorated jars all the way to a distant city, and there someone admired the marks so much they thought the jar had been touched by priests. You smile at the memory. Historians still argue whether pottery decoration was purely functional for identification of maker or contents, or whether it was done for beauty's sake. To you, beauty is reason enough. A bowl with a red line is still a bowl, but it speaks more clearly of the care behind it. The next piece is a tall jar. You score patterns along its belly with the bone needle, shallow lines that curve like waves. Perhaps it will hold water, and the lines will mimic the river it came from. Or perhaps it will hold grain, and the marks will remind someone of rippling fields. You don't know. You only know the pleasure of the lines under your hand, the way the clay accepts each stroke. A quirky thought crosses your mind. Some neighbors whisper that certain patterns keep evil spirits away. Spirals confuse them, they say, and zigzags make them trip. You're not sure whether spirits stumble over lines the way a child might trip over a loose stone. But people believe it, and beliefs have power. Sometimes, when making a jar for a nervous family, you add extra zigzags just to soothe them. Whether it protects them or not, it eases their minds, and perhaps that is its own kind of protection. As you work, the world hums around you again. A boy runs past in the street, chasing a hoop made from bent reeds. His laughter echoes against the walls. A woman claps her hands to chase chickens from her doorway, the birds scattering in a flutter of feathers and indignant squawks. Somewhere in the distance, a faint roll of thunder murmurs, though the sky above you is still blue. Perhaps the donkey from earlier was right after all. You pause, brush your hair back from your face, and study the row of pieces drying with their new marks. The bowls seem livelier now, the jars more intentional. Decoration doesn't change their function, but it changes how they feel. Each line is a conversation, a whisper from you to whoever will someday hold the vessel. Historians still argue whether potters signed their work. In your city, some do, scratching small symbols under the base, hidden unless someone looks closely. You sometimes add a small crosshatch, not for fame, but as a quiet claim. It says, "These were my hands, here, in this moment, long after you're gone. Perhaps someone will see it and wonder who you were." You dip the reed again, this time into a darker slip. The contrast against the pale clay is striking. With a steady hand, you paint small dots along the jar's shoulder, like constellations scattered across its curve. The dots are uneven, but that unevenness is human, and you like it. Perfect circles belong to gods and stars. Your circles belong to earth and clay. The heat lingers, but it feels gentler now, softened by the coming evening. You sit back on your stool, wiping sweat with your clay-stained forearm, and admire the array before you. The decorated vessels line the boards like soldiers awaiting orders, or like children dressed for a festival, each carrying its own small flourish. Your neighbor from earlier appears again, this time with a basket of lentils balanced on her hip. She peers at your work, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. "These marks," she says, pointing, "will they last?" "They'll last longer than we will," you reply. "Once the fire touches them, they'll outlive us both." She nods, half impressed, half skeptical. "Then perhaps my grandchildren will eat from your bowls." "Perhaps," you say, smiling, "and perhaps their children after them." She leaves, but her words stay. It is strange to think that the scratch of your reed, the flick of your wrist, might echo farther into time than your own name. Yet it is possible. Clay remembers, especially once it has tasted fire. You continue until your back aches again and your fingers cramp slightly. Still, you add the last touches, refusing to leave a vessel undecorated. The sun lowers, casting long golden shafts into your courtyard, and your tools gleam briefly before you set them aside. The vessels rest quiet, their marks drying into permanence. You lean back, exhaling deeply. This part of the day is less exhausting than kneading or spinning, but it leaves you just as drained in a different way. Precision tires the mind even as it soothes it. You wipe your hands clean on a rag, then glance at the decorated bowls and jars one last time. They sit like a choir, waiting to sing once the kiln's fire awakens them. The clay is set aside, the decorations drying, and your stomach finally makes its presence known again. You've ignored its grumbles long enough, and now hunger speaks louder than the wheel or the chatter of neighbors. The smell of bread drifting from the baker's oven earlier still lingers in the air, mingling with the sharper scent of onions and fish. It pulls you from your courtyard, tugging at you like an insistent child. Inside your home, the light is dimmer, filtered through reed mats that hang over the doorway. The air is cooler here, though still heavy with the day's warmth. Your family gathers for the midday meal, simple, unadorned, yet comforting in its routine. A round of flatbread sits in the center of a low table, still warm, its edges crisped from the oven's heat. Beside it, a bowl of lentils, thick and hearty, steams faintly. A small jug of date syrup glistens in the corner, precious and sweet, a luxury you don't always have. You tear a piece of bread, dipping it into the lentils. The taste is earthy, filling, and familiar. Your wife laughs softly as your youngest child tries to mimic you, tearing his piece to large, spilling lentils across his lap. He squeals with frustration, then laughs at himself, smearing the mess across his tunic. You shake your head, amused. Life, like clay, is messy before it finds its shape. The children chatter endlessly as they eat. One brags about chasing a hoop down the street. Another insists he saw a priest's procession near the temple, though his story grows wilder with each sentence. They had a golden bull. Father, he says, eyes wide. You raise an eyebrow. A golden bull? Are you sure it wasn't just a cow covered in dust? The family bursts into laughter, and the boy pouts briefly before laughing, too. Historians still argue whether families in Mesopotamia dined together in the way modern families imagine, or whether meals were more fragmented, with people eating when they could. But in your house, gathering together feels natural. The table may be humble, the food simple, yet the sharing binds you. It reminds you that, beyond clay and markets and temples, this is the center of your world. After the lentils, your wife drizzles a little date syrup onto the remaining bread. The sweetness is overwhelming, sticky on your fingers, but it feels like a festival in your mouth. Your children squeal with delight at the rare treat, their faces smeared with syrup as they lick their hands. You wipe your own with a rag, smiling at their joy. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. Some say date syrup can heal wounds if rubbed directly into them. You've never tested it. Wasting syrup on cuts seems foolish, but the belief lingers. Sweetness, healing, perhaps even magic. You glance at your sticky fingers and laugh softly. Maybe the gods do prefer dates to grain after all. After the food, the rhythm slows. Your wife hums softly as she gathers the bowls, stacking them neatly. The children sprawl on the floor, their laughter fading into lazy chatter. One fiddles with a clay toy animal, a small bull with stubby horns, rolling it across the mat. The rough edges remind you of your own first attempts at shaping clay, crude but proud. You reach over, ruffle the child's hair, and he beams. You lean back against the wall, sipping water from a small cup. The water is tepid, but refreshing enough. It washes the lentil taste from your mouth, leaving behind only the faint sweetness of dates. You exhale slowly, feeling your body sink into the comfort of this pause. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian homes were crowded or spacious. Yours is neither. It is modest. Mud brick walls enclosing just enough space for sleeping, eating, and working. Yet in its modesty lies warmth. The laughter, the chatter, the smell of food. It makes the walls feel wide enough to hold the world. You watch your family for a moment longer, letting the scene imprint itself. Work waits outside, the clay, the wheel, the kiln. But here, in this dim room, time softens. You feel the same satisfaction you do when shaping a vessel. The sense that you are building something steady, something that will endure. Not in clay this time, but in memory. The children grow drowsy after eating, their chatter replaced by your wife shoos them gently toward a mat in the corner, where they curl together like puppies. Their breathing slows, soft and even, filling the room with a calm that is almost musical. You smile faintly. Perhaps the midday rest doesn't belong only to workers, but to children too. You step outside again. The sun still fierce, but beginning its slow descent. The air is different now, carrying the faint smell of roasting meat from someone's courtyard. The scent drifting lazily across the street. You inhale deeply, stretching your arms. The city feels awake again, ready for its second breath of the day. Your hands itch to return to the clay, to check on the decorations, to prepare for the kill. But for this moment, you linger in the doorway, savoring the aftertaste of lentils and dates, the sound of your children sleeping, the feeling of bread still warm in your belly. Work is constant, but so are these pauses. The wheel waits, the kill waits, the clay waits. But you smile, because so does the joy of a shared meal, tucked quietly into the rhythm of the day. You step back into the street, stretching your shoulders after the comfort of the meal. The air has shifted, still hot, yes, but softened by the approach of evening. The shadows grow longer, and with them comes a different kind of energy. This is when the city stirs again, not just with trade and chatter, but with rituals, omens, and the quiet weight of belief that lingers over every household. As you pass down the narrow lane, the smell of incense reaches you first. Sweet and smoky, it drifts from the direction of the temple, mingling with the scent of roasting meat from a neighbor's fire. A faint chant follows, low and steady, punctuated by the beat of drums. The sound isn't loud, it's more like the background pulse of the city itself, constant and grounding. You glance toward the towering ziggurat in the distance, its steps glowing gold in the sun's descent. Historians still argue whether such temples were meant purely for worship or whether they served as political strongholds. But to the people here, that distinction doesn't matter. To the man, to you it is both a house of gods and a house of power, shaping lives in ways both obvious and unseen. At the corner of the street, you pause to watch a small group gathered around a diviner. His tools are simple: a tray of sand, a jar of oil, and the raw liver of a freshly slaughtered goat. You've seen it before, many times, yet curiosity still pulls you in. The diviner tilts the tray, letting the sand shift into patterns. He pours the oil, watching it spread and break. Then, with great seriousness, he lifts the liver, pointing at its folds and lines. The small crowd murmurs, leaning in. The gods are restless, he declares, tracing a crease with his finger. Rain will come late this season. A woman groans softly, clutching her basket tighter. A man spits in the dust, muttering about the priests taking more offerings to appease the skies. You shake your head, both skeptical and respectful. A quirky tidbit you once heard surfaces. Some claim the gods write their moods directly into the organs of animals. Like clay tablets, only priests can read. You wonder if the gods have so much time to waste on goat livers. Still, even if you doubt, you don't say it aloud. Belief is as real as the clay you shape, whether true or not. It holds people together. Further along, a boy runs past, carrying a small clay figurine of a god, maybe Nana, the moon deity, judging by the crescent scratched on its head. He holds it high, laughing as though it grants him speed. His mother calls after him, scolding that he'll break it. The boy ignores her, darting around a corner. You can't help but smile. Perhaps the gods enjoy the chase. Near the temple entrance, smoke curls thickly into the sky. Priests move in solemn lines, their robes stiff with embroidered hems. They carry trays of bread, bowls of beer, and the occasional glint of something more precious, perhaps oil, perhaps silver. They chant as they climb the steps, voices weaving into the air. It is both mesmerizing and tiring, The repetition like waves that could carry you to sleep if you let them. Historians still argue whether ordinary people truly believed every omen, every chant, or whether some simply went through motions out of habit or fear. For you, it is less about belief and more about rhythm. The rituals, like your wheel, keep the city spinning. They remind everyone that they are small pieces in a larger pattern. Whether the gods notice or not, the people notice each other, and that matters enough. You linger at the temple square, watching as a man ties a small clay tablet to the wrist of his child. The tablet is etched with a simple mark, a symbol of protection. He murmurs a prayer, kissing the child's forehead. The child wriggles impatiently, more interested in the sweet. He sees a vendor selling nearby. You laugh quietly to yourself, faith and appetite, side by side. As always, a priest raises his hand, scattering a handful of barley into the crowd. People reach for the grains, eager for a blessing. You step back, uninterested, though the sight is oddly comforting. You think again of your own clay, of the marks you etched earlier. Perhaps they, too, are their own kind of blessing lines and circles that whisper protection, even if only in the minds of those who believe. The sun dips lower, painting the ziggurat in shades of fire. The chants fade, replaced by the murmur of people dispersing, their errands resuming, their conversations carrying into the streets once more. A woman nearby speaks of her sick mother, wondering if the gods will grant her health. Another complains that the priests demanded too much barley for their rituals. A third insists she saw a shooting star last night, an omen of change. You walk back slowly, listening. The city is full of voices, each carrying hopes and fears. And like clay, those voices shape the day, pressing lines into its surface. You carry them with you, quietly, as you return to your yard. The kiln waits, silent and heavy. The decorated vessels wait, their lines hardened just enough. The rituals of gods are done for now. The rituals of fire will soon begin. You pause at the threshold of your courtyard, glancing once more at the ziggurat in the distance. Its shadow stretches long, covering half the city. You whisper something, not a prayer exactly, not disbelief either. Just a thought offered to the air, like clay offered to the wheel. Then you step inside, ready for the next stage. The sun leans low, shadows pooling like cool water along the walls. Your courtyard carries the smell of drying clay, sharp and earthy, but soon it will smell very different. The kiln waits, silent but hungry, its mouth blackened from countless firings. It is a crude thing, by some standards a dome of mud brick with an opening for fuel at the base, and a vent above to let the heat breathe out, but to you, it is both companion and adversary. You gather the vessels you shaped earlier, lifting them carefully. They are fragile now, stiff but still vulnerable, like eggshells waiting to prove themselves. One slip, one crack in the wrong place, and all the labor of mourning dissolves into dust. You arrange them on red mats, inspecting each for flaws. A faint line on the shoulder of a jar catches your eye, but you decide to risk it. Sometimes flaws heal in fire. Sometimes they shatter. The kiln will decide. The process of stacking is its own ritual. You place the largest jars first, forming a base inside the kiln's belly. Smaller bowls and cups slide between them, filling spaces each positioned with care. You whisper softly as you work, not prayers exactly, more like coaxing words, the way you might soothe a stubborn donkey. The kiln, you've learned, listens. Or at least it feels that way. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian kilns were communal or private, whether potters fired their work together or jealously tended their own. In your corner of the city, this kiln is yours alone. Others have their own fires, their own rituals. To mix them would feel like mixing families. Each kiln has its temper, and each potter knows it like a spouse. You crouch by the fire mouth, stacking kindling, dried reeds first, then splinters of wood, then thicker logs scavenged from the outskirts. Wood is precious in this land. You never waste it. Each stick feels like a sacrifice in itself. You strike flint against stone, sparks catching on the reeds until they glow orange. You blow gently, coaxing the flames to life. Slowly, reluctantly, the kiln begins to awaken. The heat creeps outward, licking your face and arms. You add more wood, feeding the hungry mouth. The flames crackle, growing bolder, reaching inward to touch the waiting vessels. The kiln groans faintly, its mud brick shell expanding with the heat. You know that sound, well, it is both warning and promise. The firing process is long and fickle. Hours will pass before you know whether the clay has survived. You sit on a low stool, tending the flames, adding wood at steady intervals. The air grows thick, smoky, pressing into your lungs. Sweat runs down your temples, mixing with the soot that now streaks your skin. You wipe it away, smearing more than you clean. A quirky belief whispers in your mind. Some potters say the kiln holds a spirit, and if you anger it, your pots will explode. They offer the first cup of beer from a new batch, pouring it into the flames as a bribe. You consider it, glancing at a small jug nearby. You're not sure whether spirits live in mud and fire, but beer does seem to quiet everything. You take a sip for yourself, then tip a little into the fire. The flames hiss and flare as if in agreement. Outside, the sounds of the city shift again. Children laugh in the street, playing as the heat finally loosens its grip. A woman sings while grinding grain, her rhythm matching the beat of your own stoking. Somewhere, a flute begins to play, soft and wandering. The music drifts over your courtyard wall, mingling with the crackle of fire. Historians still argue whether pottery was considered lowly labor or sacred craft. You smile faintly at the thought. As you feed the fire, as you watch the glow seep deeper into the kiln's belly, it feels sacred enough. Not grand like temple rituals, not carved into stone for kings, but sacred in its persistence. Every family needs jars. Every temple needs bowls. Without clay, even the gods would lack vessels for their offerings. Hours slip by. The sky darkens, stars pricking into view. The fire glows brighter, casting orange light across your face, your hands, the walls of your yard. The vessels inside shift in color, from dull brown to glowing red. You hear faint pops, sharp cracks. Some pieces are breaking, that much is inevitable, but others endure, their strength born from flame. You lean back, stretching your aching back, eyes half-lidded from the heat and smoke. The kiln breathes steadily now, like a beast satisfied with its meal. You know better than to trust it fully, but for tonight it seems willing. At last, When the flames have consumed most of the wood, you let the fire settle. The kiln glows faintly, its belly holding the heat like an ember. Tomorrow you will open it and see what survived. For now, the vessels are hidden, suspended between life and death, between usefulness and dust. You rise slowly, legs stiff, arms heavy. You wipe soot from your brow and glance up at the stars. The kiln crackles behind you, a steady reminder that your work is not yet done. But for tonight, you have given the fire what it demanded. The rest is beyond your hands. You whisper again, not a prayer, not disbelief, just words to the night. Be kind. Then you step back, letting the kiln breathe in silence, while the city around you settles into evening. The kiln sighs behind you, glowing faintly like a tired giant, and the night creeps closer. Evening in the city has its own rhythm, a softer hum compared to morning's rush, yet lively in a different way. You wipe your hands on your tunic, leaving streaks of soot and clay. Then head toward the small square where trade often unfolds once the worst heat of the day has passed. The streets are busier now, lanterns flickering in doorways, their flames dancing in the twilight. Neighbors greet each other with tired smiles, baskets tucked under their arms. Merchants who retreated during the midday blaze reappear, laying out mats with goods spread across them. Figs, onions, woven red mats, small trinkets of bronze. The chatter rises steadily, punctuated by the occasional bray of a donkey or clatter of a wooden cart. You carry a couple of your smaller pots, ones shaped yesterday and cooled enough to trade. They are simple bowls, undecorated but sturdy, the kind every household needs. You don't bring the freshly fired ones, those will stay hidden in the kiln until morning. Tonight, it's about small exchanges, little trades that smooth the edges of survival. At the square, you set your bowls on the ground near a mat already crowded with others' goods. The air smells thick with roasting lamb from a vendor's spit, smoke curling upward to mix with the scent of dates and fermenting beer. A woman nearby balances a tray of roasted chickpeas, offering them for a handful of barley. She calls to children who hover, tempted but hesitant. A farmer approaches your bowls, inspecting them with a critical eye. His hands are rough, nails packed with dirt, his tunic stiff with dried mud. He taps the rim of one bowl, listening for its sound. Satisfied, he grunts. "How much?" "Half a sack of lentils," you reply. He shakes his head, lips twitching. "Too much?" "A quarter sack." You shrug, pretending indifference. "Then you'll eat from your hands." He chuckles, squints, then nods reluctantly. "Half a sack it is." He gestures to his son, who brings the lentils in a woven sack. You hand over the bowl, and the farmer hefts it like treasure. Trade done. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian trade relied more on silver, standardized measures, or simple barter. In your world, it is mostly barter. You rarely see silver, and when you do, it belongs to merchants who travel far beyond the city. For everyday life, lentils for bowls, fish for jars, cloth for cups. This is the language of survival. You tuck the sack of lentils under your arm and glance around. A weaver displays bright-dyed wool, colors rich and deep. You admire the crimson, though you know you can't afford it. A carpenter shows off a small stool, its legs polished smooth. He nods at you. "Still owe me that jug with a strong handle." You nod back, lifting your hand in promise. Tomorrow, perhaps. A group of children dart past, laughing, each carrying a small clay whistle shaped like a bird. They blow into them, filling the square with shrill notes. You grin, watching them scatter. A quirky thought surfaces. Some say whistles chase away evil spirits, their high-pitched cries confusing whatever lingers in the shadows. Perhaps children instinctively know this, their laughter mingling with the whistles to keep fear at bay. Nearby, two women barter noisily with a fish seller. "Your fish stink already," one complains, wrinkling her nose. "They came from the river this morning," he insists. "If they came this morning, then why are they staring at me like yesterday's catch?" She retorts. The crowd laughs, and even the seller cracks a smile, though he mutters something under his breath. Markets, you think, are as much theatre as they are trade. You move through the square slowly, enjoying the atmosphere as much as the exchanges. Someone presses a piece of roasted onion into your hand as thanks for lending them a bowl last week. You accept, biting into it. The taste is sharp, smoky, sweet. Your stomach sighs happily. Historians still argue whether artisans like you had stalls, or if they simply wandered markets with goods tucked under their arms. Tonight, you are proof of the latter. No stall, no elaborate display, just bowls carried carefully, traded where you stand. It is humble but effective. As the sky deepens to indigo, lanterns burn brighter. A brewer arrives with jars of beer, their lids sealed with clay. People crowd around eagerly, offering whatever they can. Onions, grain, even scraps of wool. The brewer grins, ladling frothy beer into mugs for those with the best offers. You trade one of your smaller cups for a mug, sipping it slowly. The beer is sour, thick, and grainy, but it cools your throat and lightens your chest. The square grows livelier. Laughter rises. Songs break out in pockets, and the hum of voices swells into a comforting chorus. You lean against a wall, watching. It strikes you that this more than temples, more than palaces is what binds the city together. The simple act of giving and taking, of sharing goods and words, of bartering both survival and stories. You head back slowly, lentils under your arm, beer warming your belly. The streets narrow, quieter now, but still alive with soft chatter. A man sings to his donkey, guiding it home. A woman hums while sweeping her threshold. A child calls out good night to a friend, their voices echoing against the mud brick walls. At your courtyard, the kiln still glows faintly, its breath steady. You glance at it, pat the sack of lentils, and smile. Trade and fire, clay and food, both parts of the same rhythm, carrying you through the day. Tomorrow, you'll see what the kiln has given back. Tonight, you rest in the comfort that trade has given enough. The market's energy lingers in your ears as you walk back through the narrowing lanes. But now, the city takes on a different character. Dusk has laid its hand across the rooftops, turning the clay walls a deep ochre, softening every line. You pause at the threshold of your courtyard. The kiln still humming like a giant sleeping animal, then decide to wander a little longer. Evening, after all, is the one time when work loosens its grip and the city reveals its gentler self. You step into the main thoroughfare, where the air is alive with scents. Smoke from roasting meat curls upward, mingling with the sweetness of dates simmering in syrup. Someone burns incense at a doorway, its sharp, resinous perfume cutting through the heavier smells. Donkeys shuffle past, their hooves kicking up dust that glows like golden mist in the last rays of sunlight. A woman balances a jar of water on her head, her stride graceful, even as her children scamper around her, kicking a ball of bundled reeds. The sounds shift as the light fades. Vendors no longer shout. Instead, voices lower into conversations, laughter, even singing. A group of men sit on mats near the corner, cups of beer in hand, their voices raised in a rough harmony. The song is simple, a call and response, but it pulls smiles from passers-by. A boy claps in time, his palms slapping against his thighs, until an elder swats him playfully to quiet him down. You stop at a corner stall where a woman sells skewers of grilled fish. The smell is irresistible, smoky and savory. You trade a small clay sharder leftover piece from a broken pot that she will grind into temper for. A skewer, she hands it over with a knowing smile. The fish flakes easily under your teeth, its saltiness mixing with the faint sweetness of the air. You lick your fingers, savoring it slowly, and watch the street unfold. Historians still argue whether evenings in ancient cities were times of leisure or continued labor. From what you see, it is both. Some still hurry with baskets, fetching water or finishing tasks before nightfall. Others linger, chatting with neighbors, telling stories, savoring small luxuries. The city, like clay, holds both work and rest in the same vessel. A group of children runs past, their arms outstretched, pretending to be birds. They swoop and dive, shrieking with laughter. One trips, sprawls in the dust, then pops up again, grinning with a mouth full of grit. Their joy echoes down the street, a reminder that not every moment here is burdened by gods or kings or grain taxes. At the far end of the lane, a small procession passes. Men carry torches, their flames flickering against the darkening sky. At their center walks a priest, chanting softly, his robe trailing in the dust. People step aside respectfully, though most watch with only mild interest. You nod as they pass, the words of the chant slipping past your understanding. Perhaps it is a prayer for rain, perhaps for protection, perhaps just the endless daily repetition that priests thrive on. You catch a familiar face. The carpenter from earlier, his hands still stained with resin. He waves you over, holding out a small wooden charm carved in the shape of a bird. For your children, he says with a grin. Keeps away bad dreams. You trade him. A promise of a jug, he reminds you with a wink hand. Slip the charm into your pouch. A quirky tidbit stirs in your mind. Some say charms carved as birds can carry prayers up to the heavens. Their wings invisible to the eye, but strong enough to lift a wish. You smile faintly, running your thumb over the tiny carving. Whether true or not, your children will delight in it. The street grows darker now, lit only by the warm glow of oil lamps perched on doorways. Their light flickers across faces, softening them into something almost ethereal. A woman tells a story to a group of children gathered at her feet, her voice carrying in the quiet. You catch a fragment. A tale of a great flood long ago, when the gods grew angry and drowned the land, sparing only a chosen few. The children gasp at the mention of waves taller than houses. their eyes wide. You've heard the story 100 times, in a dozen variations, but it still sends a shiver through you. Historians still argue whether such flood tales sprang from real events or were simply metaphors. To you, it doesn't matter. In a land where rivers flood and recede like temperamental gods, stories of deluge feel as real as yesterday's storm. You turn back toward your home, fish bones discarded, fingers still salty. The streets quiet further as families retreat indoors. Only the laughter of a group of youths lingers, echoing faintly as they chase each other down the main road, their torches weaving trails of light. At your courtyard, the kiln glows faintly, the air around it still shimmering with heat. You pause, listening. The crackle has softened, the fire settled into embers. Tomorrow you will open it and see whether your work has survived or betrayed you. For now, the night belongs not to labor but to observation. You sit on the low wall, gazing upward. The sky is clear, stars scattered in patterns older than the city itself. A faint crescent moon hangs above Nena's watchful eye. The smell of fish and incense lingers on the air. The memory of laughter hums in your ears. Evening in Mesopotamia is not silent, but it is gentle, a weaving of sights and sounds into something that settles the spirit. You exhale slowly, letting the night fold around you. Tomorrow's work will come, as it always does. Tonight, you wander in the small pleasures of Duskta. Fading colors, the drifting songs, the steady comfort of a city alive. Even as it leans toward sleep, the stars above your yard grow sharper as the sky deepens into true night. The heat of the day finally begins to ease, though the earth still breathes out warmth from its baked walls and stones. You linger on the low wall for a while, listening to the faint murmur of the city softer now, like a lullaby woven from countless voices. But inside your house, another kind of work waits. You push open the reed-hung doorway and step into the dim, familiar cool. The clay lamps have been lit, their flames small but steady, casting golden pools on the mud brick walls. The children are awake again, chattering quietly as they play with the wooden bird charm the carpenter gave earlier. One ties it to a string, dangling it from the ceiling, while the others reach up to bat at it like kittens. Their laughter is softer than earlier in the day, tempered by tiredness, but no less joyful. Your wife hums gently as she sweeps the floor with a broom of bound reeds. The sound is rhythmic, soothing, like the turning of your wheel. You nod to her, taking a small clay jar from a shelf and checking the oil within, nearly empty. You make a mental note to trade for more in the coming days. Even the simplest chores, the sweeping, the filling of jars, the trimming of wicks are small anchors holding life steady. You sit and begin repairing a broken stool, tightening the twine that binds its legs. The wood creaks, but holds firm under your weight. Around you, the house feels alive with the quiet work of closure. The sweeping, the rearranging of mats, the tidying of tools, all the small duties that prepare a home to rest. Historians still argue whether ancient homes were bustling in the evenings or hushed by nightfall. Yours is somewhere in between. The children's laughter, the scraping of the broom, the occasional thud of a jar set in place all create a gentle chorus, not loud but present. These sounds will carry you to sleep more surely than temple chants or city songs. As you mend the stool, Your eyes wander over the room. Clay jars line the walls, some empty, some filled with grain or water. A few are yours, others traded long ago. Each one holds not just food or drink, but a story of hands that shaped it, carried it, used it. You find yourself tracing the rim of one jar absent-mindedly, remembering the moment you pulled it from the wheel, still wet and uncertain. Now it stands solid, useful, patient. Perhaps this is what life is meant to be. Soft beginnings, fire, and endurance. Your wife sets aside the broom and begins sorting dried herbs in a small basket. She crumbles them between her fingers, their scent filling the air-sharp mint, sweet fennel, a hint of garlic. She hums a lullaby now, the words simple, almost wordless. The children slow their play, their eyes drooping, lulled by both the song and the day's exhaustion. A quirky belief floats to mind. Some neighbors insist sweeping at night invites spirits into the house, as though the broom stirs up more than dust. You smile faintly at the thought, watching your wife sweep anyway, unbothered. Perhaps the spirits, if they come, will sit quietly in the corner, soothed by the herbs and the lullaby. You finish with the stool and move to the doorway, peering once more at the kiln outside. Its glow is faint now, the fire reduced to a heartbeat of embers. The smell of smoke drifts in, mingling with the herbs and the faint sweetness of date syrup still clinging to your fingers from earlier. Tomorrow you will open it. Tonight it keeps its secrets. Inside, the children curl together on a mat, the wooden bird charm clutched between them. Their breaths grow deep and even, the rise and fall of small chests steady as the river's current. You watch them for a moment, a quiet warmth swelling in your chest. Historians still argue whether families slept all together or apart. But here, huddled close, your family feels like the most natural arrangement in the world. Your wife sets the lamp lower, its light softening to a dim glow. She joins you at the doorway, both of you watching the stars for a moment. The city is hushed now, though faint laughter drifts from somewhere far off, and the distant thrum of a drum echoes from the temple. Life never fully stops, here it only slows, like a wheel spinning without pressure. You step back inside, brushing dust from your feet before settling onto the mat beside your family. The house feels settled now, each object in place, each duty completed. The day's chaos has folded into order, like clay pressed smooth. You lie back, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the last sounds of sweeping and sorting. Tomorrow the wheel will turn again, the kiln will open, and the city will demand more vessels, more trade, more rhythm. But tonight, in the gentle chorus of household chores and fading voices, you let yourself drift toward rest. The final duties of the day have faded into silence. The broom has been set aside, the jars tucked neatly into their places, the herbs tied in little bundles and hung on the wall. The oil lamp burns low, its flame shivering with the smallest breath of air. Your children have fallen fully asleep, their small bodies tangled together beneath a reed blanket, their breaths rising and falling like gentle waves. You lie back on your mat, stretching sore muscles, feeling the day's weight press out of your bones. The clay still lingers on your skin, faint streaks in the creases of your fingers, smudges that no amount of rinsing will fully remove. You smile faintly in the dark. The marks of a potter never truly vanish. They sink too deeply into the skin. The sounds of the city are muted now. No carts creak, no merchants shout. Instead, you hear crickets in the reeds beyond the walls. The occasional bark of a dog, the faint murmur of voices drifting like smoke through the night. Somewhere far off, a donkey brays once, stubborn even in dreams. The silence is never complete, but it is gentle, softened by distance. You turn your head toward the doorway, where the kiln glows faintly outside. The fire is nearly gone now, only embers pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Tomorrow you will open it, and the vessels will reveal themselves, whole, cracked, strong, fragile. Tonight, though, they are suspended in that space between earth and permanence. You imagine them glowing softly in the kiln's belly, like stars trapped in clay. A soft breeze slips through the doorway, brushing over your face. It carries the coolness of the river, faint and refreshing after the day's relentless heat. You breathe it deeply, feeling your chest rise and fall in time with the night. The scent of herbs lingers in the air, mingling with the faint smoke from the kiln. It is a blend of earth and fire, of labor and rest. Historians still argue whether ordinary people of your time dreamed of the gods or simply of their daily lives. You wonder, as your eyes begin to close, what dreams will come tonight. Perhaps you will see the river, endless and glittering. Perhaps you will dream of lions in the fields, or of bowls that sing when struck, or of children's laughter echoing forever. Dreams, like pots, are fragile things shaped by unseen hands, hardened by the fire of sleep. A quirky image crosses your mind just before sleep takes you. That wooden bird charm your children clutched earlier. Maybe in the dream world it truly grows wings and carries their wishes to the heavens. You picture it soaring over the city, brushing past the ziggurat's peak, vanishing into the stars. You shift once more, the mat creaking softly beneath you. Your wife breathes steadily at your side, her presence grounding, steady as the earth itself. You close your eyes fully now, surrendering to the night. The city sleeps, the kiln breathes, the stars keep their endless watch. And you, potter of Uruk, drift into the quietest rhythm of all. The day has been shaped, fired, traded, and marked. Now it softens into silence, and you let yourself sink into it. Tomorrow the wheel will turn again, but tonight belongs only to rest, to stillness, to sleep. And now, listener, as the story of the potter fades, let your own body soften into its resting shape. Picture the clay cooling in the kiln, vessels glowing faintly as embers sigh around them, their journey almost complete. Imagine the potter's courtyard, hushed and warm, the stars scattered like tiny shards of light across the Mesopotamian sky, the noise of the market, the laughter of children, the weight of the sun, all of it has slipped quietly into memory. What remains is only the slow, steady rhythm of breath. Feel the heaviness in your arms and legs, the same heaviness the potter carried after kneading clay and stoking fire. Let it anchor you, steady and calm. Notice how your chest rises and falls, effortless, like the soft swell of the river under moonlight. The air around you is gentle, like the faint breeze through the reeds, cool against skin that has worked too hard in the heat of the day. Each sound in your space fades now, as though carried away by that breeze. Each thought drifts off, no longer pressing, no longer demanding. Just as the potter surrendered his vessels to the fire, you surrender the day's burdens to sleep. You have done enough. You are enough. Let your mind wander, unhurried, into the fields, the markets, the quiet courtyards of your own dreams. If worries appear, treat them as clay-soft, shapeless, waiting to be smoothed, waiting to be set aside. They can wait until morning. For now, all that matters is this: the warmth of rest, the softness of night, the slow turning of the world as you close your eyes. Sleep well, dream gently, and let yourself drift.